Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I am Jesse Friedman, and if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, you've probably heard the name Daniel Eagen. Daniel Eagen has emerged as one of the top pitching prospects in the Diamondbacks organization, a third-round pick out of Presbyterian College last year, and he made a very impressive first impression as a pro in 2025, a 2.99 ERA in 23 starts, earned a promotion from High A Hillsboro to Double A Amarillo toward the end of the season. I think this guy really could have a bright future in this organization. And hey, we get to talk to him on this episode of Snakes Territory, so don't go away. Here is my conversation with D-backs pitching prospect Daniel Eagen. All right. Well, we are so excited to be joined by the one and only Daniel Eagen, Diamondbacks pitching prospect here on this episode of Snakes Territory. Daniel, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate the time.
Of course, no problem.
Well, if you're a Diamondbacks fan and you're watching or listening to this episode, Daniel Eagen is probably a name you're familiar with at this point. But just to give a quick recap, he was the Diamondbacks' third-round pick back in 2024 out of Presbyterian College. We'll talk through a little bit of his journey there a little bit later in the show. And then quite a few accolades here in 2025 for you, Daniel, in your first professional season. Northwest League Pitcher of the Year, also named the Diamondbacks Minor League Pitcher of the Year as well. So I guess to start things off here, Daniel, what worked well for you, so well for you here in this first season as a professional?
Yeah, I really just trusted a lot of my stuff, and I had a lot of coaches and staff members at the D-backs that were like really helpful in making sure that I truly believed that the pitch arsenal that I had was like it was fit for me, and I did a good job of like really honing in on my strengths this season. And for a lot of the success that you saw, I really was just like honestly abusing my strengths against hitters. Like I was just trying to throw my best pitches all the time, every time, in every single outing that I had.
I know we talked a little bit about your pitch arsenal about a year ago when we spoke for that story. I guess it sounded then like the curveball was sort of the key for you, and everything kind of revolves around that with some other weapons that are absolutely there and can be weapons for you as well. But it seems like this year the curveball was just a huge weapon from start to finish.
Definitely, yeah. And what I also came to learn was that a lot of times, um, all my pitches really depend on how my fastball is doing that day. Because I had a few outings this past season where I kind of lost the fastball a little bit, or maybe it wasn't getting the command or the movement that I had hoped for, and a lot of times that um, you know caused my other pitches to get hit more, or maybe the hitter sees them a little better more. So honestly, like the curveball, yeah, it was the go to like punch out, put away pitch, but my success on my outings are like really dependent on how well I was using the fastball that day.
So the pitcher that you were at Presbyterian a year ago versus the pitcher you were this past season, what do you feel like the big adjustments or changes, if there were any? Maybe you did a lot of the same things and they really carried over well.
Yeah, there's just like I've learned a lot. I learned a lot when I was at college about like how to take care of my body, and how to approach hitters and attack hitters in a specific way, not just going up there and you know chasing stuff. Not trying to just chase nasty looking pitches. But when I got to the big or the professional level, there were a ton of things that I had to learn in order to be successful here. And I think this first season was like a huge like learning process. Like I had glimpses of success early on in the year, and then there would be an outing where I might have to take a step back and review it and really assess like what things I needed to work on. Then I would just attack that thing for that week, and I'd spend the whole week you know working on something with my mechanics, or how I'm gonna use one of my pitches for that week. And so I think it was just a lot of like stacking these things that I learned all throughout the year and like compiling them all together, and like what was my whole season. And I think like it leaves a lot of room for like building upon all of those things for next year.
Were there any? I guess one thing that we talked about a year ago was developing a changeup, potentially a pitch that could work to lefties even more. Is that something that you're kind of continuing to think about going into next year?
Yeah, definitely. And I actually got pretty comfortable with a change up, a split change kind of thing about midway through the year, and I had a pretty good amount of success with it when it was doing what it was supposed to. It was getting the movement that I wanted, and I was like really comfortable up on the mound throwing it. I think I spent like 2 weeks really just like making sure I was really comfortable with it. I can catch play and during bullpens, and then I brought it out during one of the games in the middle of the season, and it got like really good hitter feedback, like really like the exact swings and misses that I wanted, or the weak contact against lefties with the split change, and so I utilized that for as much as I could the rest of the year, and it had its moments. It had like some really good games, and then I think when I got to Amarillo, it kind of teetered down a little bit just with the elevation change and everything there. But slowing down at the end of the year, like kind of getting a little tired, but like,
Sure.
like the first season, just like feeling out that end of season vibe. So yeah, it kind of teetered down a little bit. The changeup did, but those like bright spots, they were really something that I was like proud of myself to. It showed like really good bright spots that I think I can like build upon next year too.
I feel like for those of us who have basically no ability to throw a baseball, such as myself, adding a new pitch can sound like, well, you just figure out a grip and you just start throwing it and it works. But I imagine that for you, adding a new pitch is not necessarily that simple. You have to figure out what cues work for you, and I mean, imagine the grip itself is not a small thing to figure out. How
Yeah.
did you kind of settle on that split change that worked for you when all was said and done?
So what worked for me was more of just the arm action of it. I didn't try to focus on the grip of it too much because I found that the more and more I tried to mess around with the grip, the more inconsistent it got. And I kind of like was chasing like too perfect of results the more I changed the grip. So what I did was I just put something that was comfortable in my fingers and I was like sticking with it. And then all I did was focus on like how I wanted my arm action to be and how I really wanted that pitch to come out of my hand. And I think I got really consistent enough uh, using that like during catch play and bullpens, and then I was able to like repeat it over and over again, regardless of the comfortability of the pitch in my hand. And so I got really like confident in using that against hitters, and I think that that's what allowed it to have success. And then obviously as it had less success at the double A level, but I got like really confident in being able to figure out like what cues and uh, you know mental cues I would need to get that pitch to go where I wanted it to go.
Hillsboro, it seems like was kind of a special place for you. I thought it was pretty cool when you were promoted. I think it was mid-August. You were promoted from Hillsboro up to
Right.
Amarillo, and you made this video that was like 2.5 minutes long, where you thank Tops fans. It was sort of like a letter that you wrote to them. It seems like your time there was something that you're really going to remember for a long time.
Yeah, that first season was really special. I obviously didn't have like many goals set for me at the beginning, and so I kind of just like jumped right into minor league baseball. Didn't really have um, a clue what was I was gonna be thrown into, and I played with a really good team with a bunch of great teammates, and then the community in Hillsborough was just awesome. They were behind me every step of the way. I didn't have a good opening day, and then still continuously supporting me every time I went out there. There were tons of fans that I could constantly hear cheering my name there. It was really special, and it means a lot that I was able to impact Hillsborough in that way. I really had a lot of fun there. I enjoyed my time. The city was awesome, and the coaches and players and teammates and everything were also a huge part in helping me like be really confident out there, just like feel the energy every single time I was out there in Hillsborough.
For all you parents out there like me with teenagers trying to already keep a million things under control, Cash App is here to help us make sure your teen's money and their spending isn't adding up to craziness.
With the Cash App card available to teens 13 to 17 with sponsorship by an eligible parent or guardian, every transaction triggers a real-time notification for you to see, empowering your teen to practice independence while giving you peace of mind by keeping track of their spending. You can also manage everything directly from your own Cash App account without having to switch between the two. With the Cash App card, you and your teen's balances receive 24/7 fraud monitoring, and if something ever feels off, you have the ability to lock their card right from your phone in just one tap. If you're ready to give your teen more independence while staying in the loop, start by downloading Cash App and setting up their account today. For a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Direct deposit and promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cashapp.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
Welcome back to Snakes Territory, presented by Fox One. We're back here with Daniel Eagen, Diamondback's pitching prospect. Daniel, I know you mentioned this earlier. Being promoted up to Double-A, as amazing of an opportunity as that certainly was for you, pitching in Double-A in Amarillo is a little bit different than pitching in the Northwest League.
Right.
What was that like for you? What kind of things did you hear going into it? And were those things that you heard, did those things prove to be accurate in the few starts you made at that level?
Yeah, so right away, I heard that the ball flies there, and I think everyone knows that as soon as are in the Diamondback system, you hear about Amarillo and Reno about how the ball kind of really flies there. So, but honestly, I think hearing that early on like made me worry about it less. And I, obviously there's other starting pitchers that have to throw there too. It's not just me, so everyone's got to go through it. The other team that we play at home has got to go through it. So it's all about just like using every bit of that to your advantage as much as possible. I know I kind of struggled at home, but I think it was good that I was there at the end of the year, especially just to get my feet wet a little bit, understand like what the ballpark is really like, and also like what it's going to take to get hitters out at the Double-A level. Like it's a slightly different game than in high A. I think in high A, I was like really dependent on my strengths and my stuff and like being able to just have all my pitches play off of each other. In Double-A, you got some good hitters who are going to be sitting on certain pitches and are just have really good approaches. And so I had to, take a step back and assess sometimes on the mound, like, if I was, letting the game speed up on me and, letting that Amarillo ballpark, get in my head a little bit. So it happens. I'm sure it's happened to everyone that's pitched there at some point, but I think it's just going to make for an even better, bounce back next year, hopefully. And then just like continuing to throw there over and over again, I hope that the results, improve.
Well, as someone who's been covering this team for a while, we definitely hear our fair share of stories about Amarillo. The hitters seem to love it, but
Yeah,
pitchers,
of course.
yeah,
Yes, they
maybe,
do.
yeah, not hugely surprising, I guess. I also wanted to ask Daniel just about the change in competition that you've been facing here over the last year or so of your baseball career. I mean, going from college straight to high A and then to Double-A. I mean, I imagine the level of competition that you're facing, like the gaps between those levels seems to be pretty huge.
Yeah, they're good hitters, and there's no denying that everyone that has a chance to play professional baseball, at one point they were a really good hitter, whether it
Yeah.
was then or whether it was now or in years past, or maybe it will be, years in the future. Or maybe they're a young guy and they're giving them some time to develop. But I really just had a lot of faith in my stuff and my abilities. Like I knew that coming from a small school and a small conference that, I didn't face the best of the best competition, but at the end of the day, like I trust in my abilities more than what any hitter has to offer, and I'm always going to use my strengths and I'm always going to attack right out of the gate, and that's just going to be my approach every single time I pitch, regardless of who's in the box.
Well, you mentioned, yeah, I mean, maybe you didn't face the best of competition when you were at college, being at a smaller D1 school. But I guess on the flip side, it seems like you've really kind of taken that to heart a little bit, coming into professional baseball with sort of this underdog mentality. Seems like you're not at all. You kind of enjoy coming from a smaller school like you did.
Definitely. And I still feel like I am an underdog a little bit. And I know that I was a third rounder and I just won, minor league pitcher of the year, but I really don't let those things determine like how I view myself as a ball player. Like I really always want to feel like I have something to prove. I always feel like there are people out there who don't know who I am. And I really want to like showcase every bit of what kind of baseball player I am as much as possible. And so anytime I'm on the mound throwing, like that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, like showcase my abilities like to somebody who hasn't seen them before, turn some heads obviously, but go out there, compete my butt off, like just continuing to do the things that allowed me to get to this position in the first place.
I know when we talked last year, you talked a lot about Elton Pollock and how he was kind of a mentor figure for you during your college experience. I'm curious over this past season as you've been playing professional baseball, who are kind of the people that you leaned on and that were in your corner through the highs and the occasional lows of being a pro?
Yeah, so obviously the coaches in Hillsboro were great, but I really leaned on my teammate John West.
Huh.
We were roommates in Hillsboro, and I think just both of us being starting pitchers, we threw on back-to-back days all season, so we like really tuned in for when it was our time to throw that week. And I think just like going through the highs and lows of the season in Hillsboro together and like being able to share experiences and like understand what each of us was going through at a certain time, it like really helped a lot. And it was really reassuring that like um some of the things we were doing were, steps in the right direction, or we'd have tips and pointers for each other along the way. I know that I looked to him a lot when I was trying to build my routine. I tried a lot this season to try and build like a really strong routine, something that I could repeat over and over again. And he was um, a great person to pick their brain about that, because he's got a really good routine. And I just really paid attention to like the things he was doing on the mound. He is a year older than me, so he's got a little more experience. But I really just enjoyed, you know playing the whole season with him. I don't know what else to say. He was a great roommate, a great teammate, and I really enjoyed it.
You still touch base with Elton every now and then as a professional? I imagine he's a busy man.
Oh yeah, we call all the time. I was just at homecoming for Presbyterian this past weekend, and we
Nice.
just chopped it up the whole time. It was great seeing him as always. It really gives me like a really good feeling inside knowing that I have a home back at PC, and he's gonna be there, and I can just roll up anytime, say what's up, pop in, and he's always gonna be grateful to have me. And it's like a second home to me. He's really, you know, changed my life.
October baseball is here, and with DraftKings Sportsbook, you're right there in the middle of every moonshot moment. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. If I were looking to place a bet on some NLCS baseball, DraftKings Sportsbook would be my go-to. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
I know we talked about this a year ago, but for people who maybe haven't kind of heard the story, I mean, your time at Presbyterian, it wasn't always rainbows and unicorns, I guess. There were
Right.
some trying times there. I believe, if I'm remembering right, your high school senior year was wiped out by the pandemic, and so there was a little bit of uncertainty and whatnot going into college. What did he kind of mean for you as a mentor during those years? And if you can just give people a little more insight into that relationship.
Yeah, so I didn't have a lot of success. Like I was a weekend starter when I was a freshman, but I didn't have a ton of success as a starter. And then I moved to the bullpen and ended up getting injured at the end of my freshman year. Then my sophomore year, I didn't throw a ton, and was really trying to get healthy and focus on that. And he was one of those people when I was showing up to practice, pissed that I couldn't throw one day because my elbow hurt. He'd
Mm.
be very like supportive and reassuring. That he would always come up to me like, "Hey, we're playing the long game here, man. Like you're hopefully going to have a long baseball career ahead of you. I'm trying to look at the bigger picture here and keep you healthy as long as I can." And so I'm not going to risk throwing you in these games when you don't feel 100%. I'm going to give you the resources and the time that you need to assess your health and come back stronger and better than ever. And I truly think that really changed the course of my career, because I took a step back, assessed what was causing my body to not feel good, and I spent a lot of time that season just getting better and better taking care of my body and taking care of my arm. And I ended up coming back stronger than ever. That summer I was throwing harder than I ever had in my entire life. And I really just thank him for believing in me to have belief in myself. That was a really hard thing that I had to learn, was that, I knew that I was, I was itching to play in games. I really wanted to get out there, but he like kind of took it in his own hands and took me out of that position to be able to throw in games. And so I thank him for that, for being the bigger man in that situation. And, just giving it to me straight. Like, you're not going to pitch if you're not feeling good. So had a lot to thank for him for that.
Yeah, hard words to hear in the moment, I imagine. But now it's like, yeah, I guess that was maybe the right thing in
Yeah,
retrospect.
100% the smart move right there.
When I talked to Diamondback scouting director Ian Rebin a year ago, your name came up at one point, and he was really struck by just the impression that you made when you guys sat down. I think it was him and his team. It was like a 25-minute conversation, something like that. And he talked about just your ability to overcome adversity. And I know this comes not only from your experience in college, as you were just talking about navigating the injury and everything there, but going back to childhood. You have a pretty crazy story that you shared with me of walking through a really tragic cancer situation, a brain tumor at a very young age, that thank God has resolved and in a good spot now. But I know that kind of made an impression when you told that story to the team. So love for you to share some of that here as well.
Yeah, when I was 4 years old, I had a benign brain tumor in the back of my head, and I was just, a young kid, and so I just had headaches and was crying all the time. But my parents knew something was wrong, so they took me into the doctor, and that's what they found. And luckily, they caught it early enough to where I wasn't in the hospital for long. I had a surgery lined up, and they took care of it pretty quickly. But that's not easy for any parent to go through. And I, was too young at the time to really grasp like what condition I was in or even what was going on at that time. I barely remember,
Sure.
anything from that time, but I really just grew up wanting to appreciate my parents for like just taking extra really good care of me. And I grew up not allowed to play on trampolines, ride bikes without a helmet, skateboard, stuff like that. And so, or play football even. And
Hmm.
that's why I kind of drifted towards baseball when I was younger. But anyways, I just really grew really appreciative of, their love and support for me, because I know that's not easy. And as I got older, I would have to go back to the Duke Children's Hospital where I had my surgery and do like a yearly or annual checkup with the doctor that did my surgery. And I think what impacted this whole like experience with the tumor the most was just seeing like other sick kids in the hospital at that time, and just understanding like I wasn't committed to play baseball at the time when I was doing these visits, but I was still an avid baseball player. And I think it just really hit harder knowing that like there are kids there who aren't going to be able to live out their dreams, or even if they you know make it through whatever they're battling, they might not be physically able to do so. And so it just put that whole experience in perspective to me, that I'm so blessed and grateful to be healthy and being able to, move on from that experience, and like on top too, like no problems after. It was just
Mm.
something to be extremely grateful for. And I don't take any of that for granted. I really try to, use that experience as much as possible to, remind myself that, moments like these are, and people like this are who I do it for.
Mm. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Daniel. Yeah, I guess on a bit of a lighter note to round things out here. I know you've been a big Zac Gallen fan for a while, going back to college. Certainly, his status in the organization. We'll see what happens with free agency and whatnot moving forward. But certainly a pitcher D-backs fans very familiar with, have a lot of appreciation for. What have you admired about Gallen over the years, and what can you kind of take from his game, do you think?
I think he just has really good work ethic, and I think he like anyone else like understands what it's going to take for him to perform at his best ability. And I know for him that might be a little more analytical, but when I watch him pitch, I really just like how he goes about attacking hitters. And obviously we're in the same organization, but I really do have always liked the way he's thrown the baseball. I think we have a fairly similar arsenal, but it was cool to be able to not grow up, but like right before getting drafted, and throughout college ball, knowing who Zac Gallen was and seeing him throw, and it's like, okay, this guy could be my teammate one day. So it was really cool.
Well, Daniel, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This has been awesome. I know we've been talking about you on this show for a good while, as this is a name you're going to want to keep an eye on. And now people can put a face to the name and a story and everything as well. So we really appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jesse.
Well, thank you so much again for listening to this episode of Snakes Territory. As always, we'd really appreciate it if you drop a like if you enjoyed this episode. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, how you're feeling about Daniel Eagen's future as a member of this organization. And of course, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube if you haven't already. If you're joining us on an audio-only platform, it would really help us out if you'd leave us a 5-star review. And of course, you can find me on social media. I am at Jesse and Friedman. Jack, who will be back in our next episode, he is at ShoeWizard59. Of course, you can follow Daniel Eagen himself over on Twitter. Highly recommend doing that as well. He is at Daniel_Eagen. And of course, you can find our show at Snakes Territory. Thank you again to everyone for taking a listen or watching this episode. And we'll be back with another edition of Snakes Territory very, very soon.